Have you ever dismissed an urban legend as nothing more than a spooky campfire tale? Think again. Sometimes the line between myth and reality blurs, and those chilling stories we tell in the dark turn out to be more than just fiction. Prepare to be unnerved as we delve into documented cases where urban legends shockingly transformed into real-life nightmares. These aren't just stories anymore. They're cautionary tales, reminding us that sometimes the truth is stranger and far more terrifying than fiction.
We have the woman in black. Now, if you've ever watched any of my urban legends videos, you'll know that almost every country in the world seems to have a creepy story about a woman wandering along the side of the road and scaring drivers. Well, in 2014, it really happened. All along highways in Alabama, Georgia, Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and West Virginia, people started seeing a woman in black by the side of the road. She would always be wearing black willowy robes, dragging a small black bag and perhaps an umbrella if it was raining. Some people tried to talk to her, to offer her food, water, or money. She refused it all. Who was the woman in black? Well, eventually people found out. She was 54-year-old Elizabeth Poles. Police took her to an undisclosed location for her safety, where they fed her and helped her find shelter. She later told ABC News that she wished people would mind their own business and that her long journey was related to her faith and religion. Now, sadly, this interview only brought even more attention to Elizabeth, although she eventually dropped out of the public eye and perhaps continued her long journey. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the body snatchers. In the 1960s, there was a rumour going around that governments were removing parts from the bodies of dead children and shipping them to secret labs in the US. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie, but it was totally true. When World War II ended with the US dropping the world's first atomic bombs, they wanted to determine the effects of nuclear radiation on humans around the world, specifically children who have been born since those bombs were dropped. It was called Project Sunshine. Over 1,500 bodies, many of them babies, were gathered from half a dozen countries from Europe to Australia in the 1950s for these studies. At times, the scientists would even ship single body parts taken from the babies without the parents even knowing. Coming in at number 8 now, we have Trick or Treat. For almost as long as Trick or Treat has been a thing, so too have the stories of nasty tricks of people putting dangerous things in the bags of little kids in order to cause them harm on Halloween. It sounds too horrific to be true, right? I mean, it's Halloween, it's supposed to be fun. In 2017 though, some parents' worst fears were confirmed when a mystery person allegedly dropped a small bag of crystal meth into the trick or treat bag of a toddler in Wisconsin. The Menominee tribal police chief said the child's father was going through the candy and he found a really small clear plastic bag about the size of a quarter. When the substance inside was tested, it was proven that the powder was methamphetamine. As a response, the local school banned students from bringing any candy to school the next day while an investigation continued. Moving on to number 7 now, we have Colonel Buck's cursed tomb. You can find Colonel Buck's tomb in Maine. He was a famous military leader in the late 18th century, but is mostly known nowadays for his tomb. Colonel Buck's was a Justice of the Peace. That title means he was a figure tasked with leading the local people and making sure justice and peace was always maintained. As part of this role, he is said to have ordered a witch be put to death by burning. The accused woman, in her dying breath, is said to have put a curse on his tomb that Buck had prepared for himself years before. When people looked at the tomb after, they saw a strange stain on it in the shape of a woman's leg. People said this was a sign of the curse and the leg was actually the witch's. Now, according to legend, the stone has been replaced many times, but this stain keeps appearing. This urban legend is 100% true, except I think for the stone replacing bit. I'm not too sure about that bit, but yeah, let's go with 99% true. Next up at number 6 now, we have Loyon. For many years, people in Switzerland spoke of a strange figure who stalked the Morlaix forest wearing a camouflage jacket and a vintage gas mask. The locals began to call him Loyon, and he slipped into urban legend. Then, in 2013, someone snapped an actual picture of Loyon. He was real. Locals searched for him all over the forest. Someone even found a camouflage boiler suit folded in the forest along with a letter from him. The letter said that the man was annoyed that the media had exposed him because his walks in the forest were part of his happiness therapy. He concluded the letter by saying, "I have concluded that the media has had two effects: deprive a person of his harmless outlet and make others feel insecure." Ever since the letter was found, Loyon has never been seen again. Poor guy.
At number 10, over in Maine, the man in the woods. A rumor in Maine's North Pond area went around that someone lived in the woods. People who camped or had vacations would have items go missing, and while the rumor persisted, it was often dismissed. Well, that was up until a game warden confronted a man living alone in the woods in 2013. Christopher Knight had been living alone in the woods for 27 years and admitted that he was behind an average of 40 robberies a year. He kept tabs on the people visiting the area, took their things, and did his own thing without notice for nearly 3 decades. So when you think something goes missing and someone just says you lost it, maybe not. On to number 9. This urban legend comes from the urban center of Toronto. At number 9, the leaping lawyer. Around Toronto, you may hear the story of a lawyer who impressed articling students by running into windows to show how strong they were, until one day he broke the window and fell to his death. Now, this isn't just a story for the purpose of illustrating a lesson, this actually happened. Gary Hoy was known as one of the best and brightest at his law office. Then, after a reoccurring practice of running at windows, one day the pane popped loose. He fell from the 24th floor of the Tiki Center on July 9th in 1993. The self-defenestration led to his death at the age of 39. Now, the articling students he was trying to impress got much more than they bargained for, so take from this. You are not immortal, the worst can happen, and most importantly, look up to see if the building you're in is up to code to handle your weight being thrown out a window before you try it. Stay safe. And now next, at number 8, a more recent Toronto legend, Rubber Boots Man. One of Toronto's iconic myths and urban legends, just like that Spider-Man figure that rides the subway, is Rubber Boots Man. You don't know if it's true until you see him for yourself, but it's a great look. I've seen him probably a dozen times. If you've been walking around Toronto, you may have spotted him yourself. He's donning either a shirt or sweater with "I hate rubber boots" on it in all caps, and the man is wearing rubber boots. The irony is amazing. And his explanation is, "I don't really hate rubber boots, of course. Indeed, I've been totally obsessed by them my entire life, but it's fun to walk around in public, not just in my boots, but with the ironic statement, 'I hate rubber boots,' plastered across my chest." And gotta admit, the guy's a comedy legend. You gotta commit to the bit, baby. And he did. And that's how he is now an urban legend. You can become one too. Lesson for you. Let's move on to number 7. Number 7 is Le Loyon, also known as the Ghost of Malls. Sorry if my French isn't up to snuff. In the Malls forest in Switzerland, an urban legend circulated about a mysterious figure who walked around in a camouflage boiler suit and a gas mask that covered their whole face. Those native to the area gave him the name Le Loyon, as he was thought of as a ghost story and just that. And that was until 2013. That year, a photo was snapped of the local legend, and then people tried to search through the forest to find him. Because you see one photo and you're like, oh, this is real? And they just went on a hunt. And he wasn't too happy about this, apparently. He wrote in a note found beside a neatly folded boiler suit that his hikes in unique attire were happiness therapy, and that the media attention was not appreciated. He wrote that the media had 2 effects on him. 1, deprive a person of his harmless outlet, and 2, make others feel insecure. So take this away from the past 2 stories. There's some people that just want to go on some walks, you know? Respect that. Wear what you want. On to number 6, finding rats in a toilet bowl or other rodents. So, maybe you've heard that animals can show up uninvited to your home, but it's not always through a hole in the wall. You could hear some splashing noises in the middle of the night and find a rat doing some laps in the toilet bowl. You may blow this off because no way, right? But hate to break it to you, but yes way. Enough that it became an urban legend because it just sounds so unbelievable. Turns out rats and other rodents are attracted to the undigested food found in feces, which leads them through the sewers. Then they may smell some of the food scraps in your kitchen sink and go towards it, taking a detour to the porcelain throne because it's easier to access. The plumbing for toilets is usually 3 inches in diameter or more, which is plenty for a rat. So if this does happen to you, the pros say to close the lid of the toilet and flush. The rat will either swim back down or drown on the way down. Both ways, you get rid of the problem though. So that's what the pros say. Anyways.
Moving on to number 5 now, we have the sunken city. All over the world, there are urban legends about towns and cities being submerged under the water. Perhaps the most famous example is, of course, Atlantis. Well, there is actually a real-life example of this in America, Lake Lanier. This is an artificial lake in Georgia that spreads out for 59 square miles. When the Army Corps began constructing the dam in 1950 to flood the area, people were already leaving. For those 5 years, the government bought up private land from farmers and townspeople so that they could be relocated elsewhere. The final count involved 250 families, 15 businesses, and 20 cemeteries, along with all the bodies buried there. The water ended up swallowing fields, bridges, gates, landmarks, a ferry business, roads, forests, and even a racetrack called Looper Speedway. These days, if you could walk along the bottom of the lake, which is 258 feet deep in some parts, you'd find a ghost town inhabited only by fish, swimming in the murky depths that humans once called home. Coming in at number 4 now, we have Catman of Greenock. In the Scottish town of Greenock, people talk for years about a strange man with no hair, covered in mud and dirt, who would be seen eating rats. If it sounds bizarre, that's because it was. The story spread across the whole area. People enjoyed it as nothing more than a creepy story, but then in 2007 things got very real. Someone uploaded this video of the Catman in real life chomping down on an actual rat. This was a shock to many people because stories of Catman have been around since the 1970s. However, since 2017, no sightings have been confirmed and Catman has slunk off again into local urban legend. Next up at number 3 now, we have E.T.'s burial spot. Now from that title, you might think I'm about to tell you that E.T. wasn't just a movie, it was all real, and he died, and I know where he's buried. Now if that was true, it would be the story of the century. It's not that, but this is really interesting as well. Legend says that somewhere in the New Mexico desert, Atari buried copies of one of the worst commercial failures in video game history, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Why did that game fail? Well, it was clearly a cash grab deal with Steven Spielberg to make more money from one of the most successful movies at that time. They had just 5 weeks to make this game, and as such, it was rushed and sloppy and just rejected by the early gaming community. It also came during the 1983 video game crash. That didn't help. So Atari have millions of unsold games and decided to bury a lot of them in the desert. Well, this urban legend is 100% true, of course. In 2013, a documentary team excavated the rumored dump site and found hundreds of thousands of Atari cartridges buried in the desert. Many of them were of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Next up at number 2 now, we have the medicine murder. For many years there have been urban legends going around about murderers breaking into people's houses by climbing through a bathroom cabinet. It's a creepy thought, a killer just squeezing into your bathroom in the middle of the night. It became such a popular urban legend that it inspired the 1992 horror film Candyman, which includes a scene where the main characters learn that a murderer might be entering apartments through the medicine cabinet. This actually used to be a major structural flaw in many American apartment blocks. Well, the nightmare became true in 1987. Back then, some housing blocks in Chicago had apartments that were joined with just a flimsy partition. An actual murder was committed by criminals who used this to climb through into someone else's apartment and commit a murder. The urban legend had become a movie, which has ended up becoming a reality. And finally, at number 1 now, we have Slavemaster. Around the turn of the millennium, many people started receiving chain mail warning them of an instant messenger user called Slavemaster, a serial killer who lured women to his house through public chat rooms. Sometimes he used names like Monkeyman935 or Sweet Cali Guy Forever. Whatever his name was though, the email warned people that he had already killed 56 women. It seemed like an urban legend, and many of the details might have been embellished, but there is actually some dark truth to this story. In the 1990s, John Edwards Robinson was a serial killer from Kansas City who lured people to their deaths using instant messaging sites. His username was, of course, Slavemaster. He remains on death row to this day. I always start.
On to number 5. Why there are no flowers in Green Park. So there's a story told in London that adultery is the reason behind there not being flower beds in Green Park. Apparently, King Charles II picked flowers for not only his wife but also many other ladies at that park. Once his wife heard about it, it is thought that she ordered all the flowers removed. She didn't hate the player, she hated his game. But apparently his game was too much even for her to try to rein in that reigning king because he fathered at least a dozen illegitimate children. So flowers worked for him. Number 4. Medical students being assigned relative cadavers. So, urban legend has circulated for centuries that people get a relative as a cadaver when they're studying bodies, or they can. Having to dissect into someone you share genetics with is never a comforting idea. I find dissection quite uncomfortable on its own. But this is a legend that has truly happened on more than one occasion. The most well-known occasion is from 1982 when a student at the University of Alabama School of Medicine in Birmingham pointed out to her instructor that one of the 9 cadavers given to the class could be her great-aunt. And it was. Staff members at the medical school said another interesting point was that the student and her great-aunt had discussed the relative merits of body donation to medical science. So they literally talked about the fact that her aunt could be dissected, and it happened to be her great-niece doing the dissecting. The body was transferred to another location so that the student could focus on their work. But moving on, number 3, Cropsey of Staten Island. Cropsey was known in Staten Island as a boogeyman with a hook hand living in the woods by an abandoned mental institution. He would drag children out and carry them to the hospital, allegedly. He was a story parents told their children was not real because no, there isn't a man living in the woods kidnapping and disemboweling children, but children were disappearing. During the 70s and 80s, there were a string of disappearances. Andre Rand was convicted as a kidnapper and suspected as a child serial killer in many of these instances. He was the former custodian at Staten Island's Willowbrook State School before it closed. Jennifer Schweiger, a 12-year-old girl born with Down syndrome, was found dead in a shallow grave on the former property of the Willowbrook State School. The jury couldn't come to a verdict on a murder charge, but Rand was charged with first-degree kidnapping and suspected to be behind the disappearances of other children as well. Number 2, Charlie No Face, aka the Green Man. Still talked about in Beaver County is Charlie No Face, a man that roams the streets at night, sometimes called Green Man because maybe he was radioactive from an accident. Thrown away as a tall tale because of its unbelievable nature, this story is really true. The green on his face wasn't radioactivity, just a nose with injuries prone to infections. Ray Robinson was a man like any other, just someone who had a tragic accident when they were young. When he was younger, Robinson touched an exposed power line on accident at 8 years old that severely electrocuted him, resulting in his nose, lips, ears, eyes to be misshapen or just gone. He was raised from that point on in an isolated environment and took to walking the local highways when he wanted a bit of an escape. He was aware of the impression he could give off, so he went out alone at night. People heard the myth and would seek him out. The not nice people would pee in beer bottles to give to him or drive him to a random location to fend for himself, but the nice people would share beer and cigarettes with him, because Ray was just like anyone else. But on to last but not least, number 1 of strange urban legends, lawn chair aircraft. So, local lore circulates Los Angeles about a man who flew in a lawn chair attached to balloons, and it's true. A man by the name of Larry Walters tethered 45 weather balloons to a lawn chair he purchased from Sears and flew up and away. Kinda sounds like the movie Up, but this is a lawn chair. His plan was to travel 300 miles through the Mojave Desert using an air pistol to pop the balloons for a controlled descent. Unfortunately, he traveled to a much higher altitude than he anticipated, and then a gust of wind tipped the chair when it was about 3 miles up and he dropped the air pistol. He ended up getting too high, and so high that he disrupted air traffic as he flew an unworthy air machine. That man had a dream to fly with balloons, and he did do it, but his descent was dangerous as he was nearly electrocuted by power lines. He did survive the event though.
Moving on now to number 9, guys, we have the Bunny Man. I talked about this legend in my West Virginia video, if you remember. The story goes that in 1904 a mental asylum closed down. While transferring inmates to a new facility, one of the buses crashed. Most of the people in it were killed or captured trying to escape, but one actually did escape, known as the Bunny Man. He would then roam the land, hunting rabbits and then leaving their half-eaten carcasses for the locals to find. Sometimes they will be hanging from a tree or a bridge. Although there are parts of the story that just don't add up, something strange happened in 1970. A couple driving their car at night had an axe thrown through their window by a man in a bunny suit. 2 weeks later, another man found an axe-wielding guy in a bunny suit chopping wood nearby who was gone by the time police arrived. Are these linked together somehow? Is there more truth to this than meets the eye? Moving on now to number 8, we have the body under the bed. Ever since hotels and motels have become a common part of society. People have swapped stories about guests who discovered that the mattress they were sleeping on was either above or even stuffed with the body of a murder victim. A grisly tale for sure, but one that was confined to the realms of myths and legend. Then, in 1999, a case in Colorado occurred involving a couple who slept on a mattress containing a body. The police kept the details of that close to their chest, but in 2010 a huge story broke when guests at a Memphis motel discovered they had been sleeping above the body of Sony Millbrook, a missing person at the time. Her boyfriend, Lakeith Moody, was convicted of the crime. Many people were horrified and vowed to give their hotel beds a closer inspection next time. Next up at number 7 now, guys, we have the Maine Robber. That's M-A-I-N-E. The state. For many years, visitors to Maine's North Pond have reported that something strange was going on there. Time after time, people reported that things were going missing. Not just one person, one time, many people, many times. Batteries and food would vanish from cabins, while flashlights just disappeared from camping tents. People thought either the earth itself was swallowing it all up, or there was a thief at work. It turns out they were right about that. In 2013, a game warden discovered Christopher Knight living alone in the woods. For 27 years, this man had been there watching hikers, canoeists and other visitors to the area. When taken in for questioning, Knight admitted that he was responsible for around 40 robberies a year. I mean, stealing batteries is one thing, but I feel like if you were being watched all those years and then you were proven right about it, that would be even creepier.
At number 10 is the Slender Man. The Slender Man is a creepy figure that has woven himself into the fabric of modern folklore, but did you know his shadowy presence isn't just a recent internet creation? No. As Slender Man's eerie tendrils stretch as far back in history. Tales of tall faceless entities can be traced to ancient Egypt, where they're known as the stalkers of the pharaoh. Even the Middle Ages had their own version, called the silent stalkers, often blamed for mysterious disappearances in medieval villages. In the 1800s, a German legend known as Der Große Man bore a striking resemblance to our modern Slender Man. He was said to snatch up misbehaving people. Even in Renaissance art, there are some subtle hints with figures resembling the notorious stalker. So Slender Man may not be as modern as we thought, and this makes you wonder, is he lurking somewhere hidden in the shadows even today? And number 9 is the Rat King. No, it's not some rodent monarchy, but a truly unsettling phenomena that's actually rooted in reality. Imagine rats, not cute little critters, but a nightmarish collective entity twisted and tangled together, forming a grotesque super rat. Yeah, and here's the chilling truth. This isn't just an urban legend, it's an actual phenomenon that really happens. These abhorrent rat amalgamations are found primarily in city sewers, especially in places like in New York City's subway system. While it may sound like something out of a horror movie, these rat kings are a biological mystery. Some say that this is the result of crowded living confrontations, or perhaps even sticky substances binding to their tails, while others believe it's a product of our fevered imaginations. Nevertheless, the idea of these rats roaming beneath our feet is enough to give anybody the creeps. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing that notification bell. And number 8 is the Babushka lady. We all know the story of JFK's assassination, but not so much has been confirmed about who done it. And the same can be said for the person who recorded that notorious footage. Enter the Babushka lady, a woman wearing a headscarf who's said to have captured the entire ordeal on film. The problem is that despite countless investigations, her true identity has never been revealed. Some say she was just an innocent bystander who got caught up in the chaos of that fateful day, while others suggest that she might have been an undercover agent who was to obtain confirmation of JFK's unaliving. Conspiracy theories run rampant, and that's where it gets really interesting. You see, some go as far to say the government is deliberately concealing her identity, fueling even more speculation. The Babushka lady is like a puzzle piece missing from one of history's biggest jigsaws, making her one of those mysterious urban legends we may never fully understand. At number 7, the Montauk Project is like a real-life science fiction thriller, but of course you can't believe everything you hear. This conspiracy theory has been making waves since the 80s, and it's got more twists and turns than a roller coaster. Picture this, a secret government project at Camp Hero in Montauk, New York, dabbling in psychological biological warfare, time travel, and even contact with aliens. Yeah, sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It all started with this guy named Preston Nichols, who claimed to recover repressed memories of his own involvement. He said that he was abducted periodically and even claimed to have degrees in parapsychology, psychology, and electrical engineering, adding a layer of credibility to his story. But in reality, the whole story appears to be a mix of fiction and past spun together into one big urban legend. So while the Montauk project might not be the real deal, it's still a cool reminder that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. But remember, not everything you hear is as mind-bending as it seems. And number 6 is the Philadelphia experiment. So back when World War II was in full swing, according to this story, the US Navy went far beyond conventional warfare, delving into weapons programs that bordered on sci-fi. They allegedly conducted an experiment where they made an entire warship vanish into thin air. Like poof, it's gone. But here's the kicker, when they made the ship reappear, things got even weirder. The crew, so the story goes, were somehow fused into the very metal of the ship like they'd become a part of the USS Eldridge themselves. Now let's break it down. Is this mind-bending story legit? Well, the official word is that it's nothing more than a myth. The US Navy denies all of it, and there's not a ton of solid evidence to back it up. But let's be real, who can resist a mystery even if it's a tad outlandish? So is this true? Probably not, but it sure is an intriguing piece of history to chew on.
Next up at number 5 now, we have the Puebla's secrets. For many years, longer than people can even remember, the people of Puebla in Mexico have talked about the tunnels. Secret tunnels that were built under their city by the Spanish conquistadors in the 1500s. It's been almost half a millennia since then, and the stories became legend. People looked for them, but they found nothing. The tunnels became a myth, something to scare the kids into believing there was a dark maze of caverns beneath them. In 2014, construction workers were in the middle of an urban remodeling project when they stumbled upon an old tunnel. Surely the legends weren't true. The Puebla History Center took over the site to investigate, and yes, it was the fabled tunnels people had spoken about. They determined the tunnels were built in 1531, right after the city was founded. Members of the Catholic Church supposedly used the tunnels to transport treasure and other property in and out of the city without people knowing about it. Part of the tunnels are now open to the public, giving you the chance to walk through the dark halls of an urban legend that came true. Coming in number 4 now, guys, we have the Alligators. I definitely talked about this one in our New York urban legends video. Many years ago in New York, people would say that there were alligators in the sewers below the city. They said a young boy once flushed his pet alligator down the toilet. Years later, he reached into the sewer grate to retrieve a lost baseball. At that moment, a fully grown alligator leapt up from below and ripped his arm clean off. The same alligator he had flushed away. Many people dismissed the whole story. Alligators, New York, crazy. However, in 1959, Teddy May, the commissioner of New York during the time of these rumors, wrote about the alligators in his tell-all book. He said that he and his inspectors did find alligators in the New York sewers in 1935. They were up to 2 feet in size. It took 2 years for them to clear them all out, more than enough time for the facts to get blurred with fiction. Moving on to number 3 now, we have the Dog Boy. For many people in Arkansas, they know the stories of the Dog Boy. Kids swap tales of a werewolf-like man who roams around the town of Quitman. Some even say they've seen him. Many of them might not know that the story is somewhat based in real life. Gerald Bettis was born in Quitman in 1954. By the time he was a young boy, the neighbors were already calling him evil. They said he liked to capture stray animals and torture them in twisted experiments. As he got older, he turned on his parents, tormenting them until, at the age of 27, his dead father was found in his home. The newspapers said it was illness, but others said it was murder. Beres then kept his mother in the house until she was finally taken away and placed in protective custody. His mother testified against him, and he was given life in prison, where he died a few years later. They say that his spirit still haunts that house and that he's often seen roaming the area as a ghost on all fours with shaggy hair like a dog. And finally, number 1 now, we have Polybius. You may remember this from my video game Urban Legends video. Polybius was the name of an arcade game which kids in Portland got addicted to in 1981. Whenever they were forced off it, they felt nauseous, stressed, or even had seizures. Some people noticed the game was being serviced a lot more than usual. Instead of once a month, Polybius was being checked by men in black suits every single week. They would copy its hard drive, leave all of the money, and then be gone until the next week. People believed they were from the CIA, and that Polybius was all part of a mind control program that sent subliminal messages to its players. While a lot of this is debatable, there really was a kid who got sick during an arcade marathon contest in Portland in 1981. A few days after that, federal agents really did seize a load of arcade cabinets. They said it was all part of a major gambling bust. This is where people tend to differ in opinion. Some say that the story of Polybius was inspired by the events, others say the events are proof of the story.
At number 5 is the Voynich manuscript. This mysterious document dating back to the 15th century it's like its own riddle. Its 240 pages are filled with elaborate illustrations of plants that don't exist, strange human figures, and a script that's in a language that seems to be entirely alien. Over the years, countless cryptographers, linguists, and historians have tried to crack its code, but all have failed. What's even more perplexing is that this strange manuscript seems to have no known origin, and it's written in a language or code that no one's been able to decipher. Is this an ancient medical text, a secret alchemical manual, or simply the ramblings of a madman? Theories abound, but the truth remains elusive. The Voynich manuscript is a genuine historical anomaly that continues to baffle scholars, making it one of the most enduring mysteries in the annals of human history. At number 4 on our list of disturbing historical urban legends takes us on a cosmic journey to the infamous face on Mars. This one is a real head scratcher. You see, some folks were absolutely convinced that a Martian civilization was a bit selfie obsessed and decided to build a giant face-shaped monument on the red planet, as if they wanted to say, hey Earth, check out our cool stone faces. But hold on just a second, don't start imagining a cool sci-fi movie just yet, because the truth is a little dull. You see, scientists are the ultimate party poopers when it comes to cool space mysteries. They've delved into this one, and it turns out that this so-called face is nothing more than a natural rock formation, just a product of hills, shadows, and a little phenomena called pareidolia. That's when your brain goes, hey, that rock looks like a face. So as much as we might have wanted to believe in our cosmic neighbors striking a pose for the universe, the reality is a bit less out of this world. At number 3 are cursed tiki dolls. These eerie urban legends have been circulating for ages, but when you dig into them, it's like peeling back layers of a mystery. You see, the legend has it that if you get your hands on one of these wooden dolls, bad luck will follow you like a shadow. Misfortune will come knocking at your door, and it's game over. But hold on a minute, where's the hard evidence? You'd think in this age of smartphones and surveillance cameras, someone would have captured a cursed tiki doll in action, am I right? I mean, think about it. We live in a world where we can track down a missing phone using GPS or watch live video feeds from the other side of the planet. So if these cursed tikis were really causing chaos, we probably should have some concrete evidence by now. All we're left with these spine-tingling stories passed down through generations. Now, until there's some real proof, it might be best to leave these cursed tikis in the realm of legend. Or maybe, just maybe, that's what they want you to think. At number 2 is Mary Celeste. Diving deeper into the murky waters of maritime legends, let's examine the unsettling case of the Mary Celeste. This tale has all the makings of a ghostly saga. Shift adrift in the boundless Atlantic, its crew gone without a trace. Now, this story might sound like something out of a supernatural thriller, but the truth is, it's more about earthly factors than paranormal spookiness. You see, as the story goes, back in 1972, the Mary Celeste was found devoid of its crew. However, if we steer our ship of curiosity away from the paranormal, we found a more reasonable explanation. You see, the crew likely abandoned ship due to a confluence of earthly circumstances. Firstly, a wonky chronometer could have misled their navigation, causing them to believe they were perilously far from their intended course. On top of that, imagine contaminated water and a buildup of alcohol fumes in the ship's hold. That's a recipe for panicked sailors seeking refuge on a lifeboat. So, although the Mary Celeste remains a tantalizing riddle, it's one with roots firmly grounded in the real world, not the spectral realm, as much as I want it to be.
Starting off at number 10, we have the Candyman. The Candyman was an urban legend based off the short story by Clive Barker, which eventually got turned into a movie. The urban legend states that if you look in the mirror and chant his name 5 times, then he will appear and give you candy. Kidding. I wish. but instead he will appear and murder you. Now in the movie The Candyman, they had him climbing out of a medicine cabinet, which altered the urban legend. In 1987, it would appear as if the Candyman was real. Ruth McCoy was a victim who passed away after two men climbed through her medicine cabinet and shot her. Now these men were not the Candyman, but used the same method of killing that he would use. They broke through the connecting wall and entered Ruth's apartment through her cabinet. This is a very scary and tragic case. At number 6, we have the Alice killings. Now, this is based on Japan's most famous urban legend. Legend has it that someone was murdering random individuals and placing a single playing card by their bodies with the word Alice written in the victim's blood. This was said to happen between 1999 to 2005. Well, in 2003, this story came to life. Around that time, there was a serial killer in Spain that would leave playing cards alongside his victims. He was found guilty for the death of 6 people and 3 that were wounded. However, no need to worry, this killer was caught and is spending 142 years in jail.
Kicking things off, and at number 10 we have the impersonating police officers. There is an urban legend that has been circulating for quite some time now about people who would dress up as police officers. They would pull people over, kidnap, or abduct them. This sounds absolutely terrifying because it's true. There have been reports of people dressing up as police officers so that they can attack their victims who let their guards down. In Illinois, a man used flashlights to get a woman to pull over, but after he walked over to her car, he tried to overpower her, but thankfully they got away. So basically, you should always be cautious when you're driving alone at night, and whenever a police officer pulls you over, if you don't see a legitimate badge, then you could be the next victim of this scary urban legend. Maybe you should ask the police officer for his license and registration. A corpse rotting in the water supply makes it onto our list at number 9. So you know how sometimes when you're staying in a hotel, motel, Holiday Inn, whatever it may be, the water might either smell or taste weird, but you still brush your teeth anyways. Me, I don't have a problem with that. I have no problems not brushing my teeth. Well, this next urban legend will make you want to reconsider. That's because a story about a dead body floating in the water supply is responsible for making the water turn brown or taste off. But as it turns out, this is more than just a story. This stuff actually happens. Back in 2013, guests staying at the Los Angeles hotel were complaining that there was a terrible smell coming from the water. So finally management decided to check the water tank, and to their surprise, they found the body of a 21-year-old woman floating inside. It's estimated that her body has been there for over 2 weeks. Next up on our list, at number 8, we have medication being laced with poison. According to this urban legend, our over-the-counter medication might actually have some added ingredients that weren't on the label. Apparently some people used to lace Tylenol with potassium cyanate, which is an extremely deadly poison. After several people died, these deaths were known as the Tylenol murders. So you know how over-the-counter medication now has those tamper-proof seals? Well, it's because this urban legend turns out to be true, and a lot of people died, so the FDA had to step up their game. Escalators and chopped off feet slice their way into number 7. Do you guys remember when your parents told you to make sure that your shoes were tied before you went on an escalator? Well, I don't remember my parents telling me that. Well, it wasn't just to bother you or to annoy you. They might have been actually trying to save your life, or at least your foot. There was an urban legend circulating around about how your shoelaces can easily get stuck inside of the escalator and how you can get sucked in or chewed up alive. Well, there's some truth to this urban legend. Every year, nearly 10,000 kids are sent to the emergency room due to escalator-related injuries, ranging from mangled limbs to the occasional foot amputations. Think I'm making this up, Google it, but I don't recommend you Googling it because, oh man, the things on the internet that we see. So what is the moral of the story here? Well, I think you should be taking the stairs for the rest of your life. Unless you have shoes that you do not have to tie, in which, in this case, all I wear is shoes with no laces on it, because I'm lazy. Number 6 takes us to snakes living in the toilet. We've all been scared to open up the toilet lid only to discover that an angry animal is living inside of the bowl waiting to bite you. Well, if you've never been scared or checked the toilet bowl before sitting, you're definitely going to want to start checking it out from now on. Well, that's because there are so many stories about people finding strange animals hanging out in their toilet water. Someone found a 5.5 long snake, another person found a family of rats. I don't know what it was doing or how it got in there, and someone actually saw a possum.
Can you even imagine a snake in your toilet? It seems to be happening more and more.
Just when you thought you were in the privacy of your own bathroom, you're not alone. An animal could be lurking in the water waiting to make its move. Losing your arm during tug-of-war could actually be a thing, and this takes.
And of course, we have the boogeyman on this list, coming in at number 4. There are so many different legends of the boogeyman out there, but this one is about one named Cropsey. This tale originated in Staten Island, where kids believed that this boogeyman would live in the woods and would attack and disembowel children. Other versions say he was an axe murderer, but no matter what version you hear, they all say that he would hurt and attack children. Parents would reassure their kids that they had nothing to worry about, but they did. In 1987, Andre Rand was responsible for a bunch of child disappearances and deaths in the 1970s. It is said that the story of the boogeyman heavily influenced him, and he even lived in the woods part-time, being the real-life Cropsey. In our third spot, we have the organ stealers. Now, this is another well-known urban legend. This urban legend has lots of variations, but they all basically surround the same concept. A person is out traveling on a business trip, hooks up with a stranger who ends up drugging them. Then they end up in a tub of ice with stitches along the side of their body and with their kidneys missing. Now, we may feel safe since this is just an urban legend, right? Wrong. It has happened to numerous individuals whose organs are then sold illegally online. In 2008, it happened to a construction worker by the name of Mohammed Salem. He took on a construction job in New Delhi, but when he showed up on the job site, he was knocked out and his kidney was taken. Another victim was Shakil Ahmed, who was 28 years old when he also had his kidneys forcibly taken from him. This is terrifying. I would like my kidneys to remain intact. Thank you very much. And in our number 1 spot, we have the black-eyed children. This legend is definitely one to keep you up at night. The legend surrounds children whose eyes are completely black that make an appearance at night. The kids can be anywhere from age 6 to 16 and target adults who are alone. These kids often ask for favors such as asking to get a ride home, asking for food, or to use the bathroom in their house. Now, there are too many stories about people encountering these children. In 1998, that was the first encounter with them. A man said that 2 black-eyed children tried to get a drive home from him. He said that the children said, "We can't get into your car until you do. Just let us in. We will be gone before you know it." No thanks. That's terrifying. More like, he will be gone before you know it. And then in 2008, a woman had a similar encounter. She was in a car waiting for her mom when the children were tapping on the glass asking for a ride. Now, it's easy for people to make up these stories for attention, but there is an actual video that shows a motorcyclist encountering a black-eyed girl. In the video, you can see the girl appear and then disappear in front of him when he stops his motorcycle. Then she appears again and he runs away terrified. Now, I will have this video linked below and tell me your thoughts on it.
Just to number 5. When we were younger, parents used to tell us that if we were too intense during a game of tug-of-war, we might lose our hands, fingers, or even an entire arm. Of course, we would just brush off those cautionary tales, but this terrifying urban legend is actually true. There are a ton of reports about adults and children losing their limbs while playing this game. And you know how some people wrap the rope around their wrists to help them win? Well, they are actually putting themselves in a lot of danger because it is so much easier to lose a hand this way. If all of these reports are true, then why the heck are we still playing this game of tug-of-war? I mean, you're gonna tug my arm off. I'm pretty sure no one even likes playing this game, especially if you're in the front and you're the one that has to fall in the mud. I mean, I'd rather be the guy in the back who's pretending to do all the work. And now at number 4, using corpses as decoration. With Halloween coming up, you might want to take a closer look at some of your neighbor's decorations or the decorations in haunted houses because, well, they could be real corpses disguised as fake dead bodies. According to the urban legend, some carnivals would run out of paper mache, so instead of wasting all of their time making new ones or making more of them, they would find a dead body and hang it in their haunted house in order to scare their customers. And I guess it looks more real? Well, that's because it is real. This actually happened back in the 70s. A criminal was embalmed and put on display for others to see. People would pay about 5 cents to see the corpse by dropping a nickel into his mouth. But one day, 2 people who claimed to be the dead criminal's brother took his corpse and hung him in their funhouse. People passing through the house didn't suspect that a real corpse was hanging from the ceiling until one day when someone went to move it and his rotting arm just fell off. The government using deceased children, and this urban legend brings us to number 3. There was speculation going around during World War II that the US government was illegally testing on corpses. A lot of people thought that this was just a rumor going around, but like everything else on this list, it turns out to be true. Apparently the US wanted to test how nuclear radiation would affect human flesh. So they couldn't get any volunteers for the research. I mean, what a shocker with that one. So they decided to use deceased children. This was known as Project Sunshine, but there was nothing gleeful from this experiment. This is incredibly morbid and super unethical, and the parents weren't even notified that their children's bodies were being experimented on. Another Halloween prank comes onto this list at number 2. This is an urban legend about a teenager performing in a Halloween show. He really wanted to have a grand finale, so at the end of his act, he was gonna pretend to hang himself in front of everybody. But he ended up actually hanging himself in front of everybody and died because everyone thought it was just a trick. Well, sadly enough, there is truth to this urban legend, and it's happened more than once. People have been trying to replicate this stunt, but somehow they forgot to, not actually kill themselves. I'm just spitballing here, but if I was performing a trick like this, I would definitely take some precautions. For one, I wouldn't put a rope that is tied to a noose around my neck, and if I do, make sure you have the one person there who knows how the trick works, and if he sees, the trick not going according to plan, to come save my life. The dead body in the mattress tops. Well, there you guys have it. This is the end of the video. I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I was your host for this one, Landon Do Not Sing, and I'll see you guys all in the next most amazing top 10 video.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. It's about the creepiest glitches that Alexa has made, and yes, we're talking about the Alexa in your home. Viewer discretion advised. Don't forget to turn off your own Alexa. Click the video now and we'll see you guys in that next video.